Hey guys, how's it going? This is the Bald Metal Nerd coming at you with another lovely video. In this one, I am going to be talking about amplifiers, amplification. Basically, what you plug either your headphones and or your speakers into, right? We have a whole bunch of options, and we're going to cover them not in extreme detail, but we will talk a bit about different options for it. Now, as far as headphones go, you do not, it's not required for you to have a separate headphone amplifier. You can plug headphones directly into your smartphone, directly into your laptop, directly into your desktop, directly into many, many things, right? So you don't have to have a headphone amp. But for what I would call serious listening, I would highly recommend getting one. And the reason I would recommend it is headphone amps tend to sound a lot better than any source that you're going to listen to. They even have sound better to my ears, at least in my experience, than what you get in a typical like stereo receiver or whatever. A separate headphone amp generally will deliver better performance, and you don't have to have high impedance headphones to see the benefit. Even low impedance headphones will generally sound better with a headphone amp rather than just straight out of the source. Now, you have a whole lot of options when it comes to headphone amps. The first one we're looking at, obviously, here is a looks like a very simple tube amp. It doesn't look like it has a built-in DAC or anything of the sort. It looks literally just like a headphone amp. No other frills. Looks like it has an RCA input there on the side, and looks like a volume dial and some outputs in the front there. And that's basically it. And we'll get into discussion of tubes versus solid state in my next video. The next video I'm going to do is basically going to be analog versus digital. So there will be some talk about tube versus solid state in that. But this is just a very simple headphone amp, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be an upgrade. It's not super expensive. But I don't know if you're just getting started in the hobby, if this is really what you want to, quote, start with, right? You might be better off starting. This is definitely not. Okay, here is another just pure headphone amp, but it is much more expensive, obviously. So $65, it's $300. I believe it is just a headphone amp. I don't believe there's a DAC built into it. There is not. There's no digital analog converter in this thing. It is literally just a headphone amp. This would be good for if you get extremely serious into the audio hobby and you start buying some high impedance headphones. You might want to get something like this because this will drive high impedance headphones better. But again, that's a whole, honestly, high impedance versus low impedance headphones, that's going to be beyond the scope of this video series. Because honestly, it's kind of out of my expertise a bit, but I'd imagine that is what this type of device would be useful for. So yeah, not really a beginner's type of thing, but something just to be aware that it exists, right? This here, I would say, I don't know if this should be the first thing you buy either, even though it's inexpensive. It's $21. I think what this would be useful, honestly, is if you're a bit of established in the hobby already, and you want to, compare a couple of different headphones at once, because this thing has 4 outputs. You can adjust the volume independently, so this would be really good for being different headphones. But I don't know if this is what I would just use as my headphone amp. But it is an option if you're interested in that. I think really a good starting point would be, let's see, there's one cheaper than that. Nope, even cheaper than that. I gotta find it here. Okay, maybe not. Nope, okay. All right. I think something that you would start with would be something along these lines for a headphone amp. I think this would be, and excellent first headphone amp for somebody, as it does have a built-in DAC and a headphone amplifier, right? And if you want, it does have a line out you can run, because as you can see in the picture there, we have the USB input, it looks like, on the far left. We've got digital out if you want to output digitally via coax. It has a standard line out for like RCA jacks into a receiver or other device. So this is a relatively versatile little unit, 75 bucks. You know, not bad at all. Looks like it has a bass boost on it. So, and FIO is a well-regarded brand. Now, a step up from that would be this item here, which has a lot of the same functionality, and it looks like you can, if you want, dock one of their portable players from it, whatever. I don't really care about their portable players, but looks like you got input, you know, you can choose different inputs. The only downside to this, though, I don't think, oh wait, it is a DAC. Is it a DAC? Yeah, it's a DAC. So I think this would be a really good choice as well. For somebody new in the hobby, I think this would be a great option. It looks like, yeah, it'll drive up to 300 ohm headphones, which is going to be most of them that you're going to find. Not a whole lot of headphones are going to be over that. I think this would be a good choice for maybe somebody starting out. But of course, my personal favorite, and yes, this is definitely what's the word I'm looking for? More expensive than the other ones. But to me, yes, it's more expensive, but it's worth it. No, you don't have to go this high, but I think this is an excellent value for what it is. It's extremely versatile. Let me show you the back here. You have USB input and optical input. So if you want to, you can hook two different devices up to this, right? And it has just straight analog outs into receiver. This is what I have in my setup. And the sound, basically this upgrades to the sound of both your PC. It basically upgrades the sound via headphones and speaker output. So it's definitely a very worthwhile purchase in my opinion. It works exceptionally well, very versatile, and this would be a great start if you have the budget for it. If not, we already did see some less expensive options. As always, do research, find one that looks like it's going to fit your needs, yada, yada, yada. And that pretty much brings us to the end of the talk about, you know, DACs and headphone amps. I guess I will make one last point on DACs, at least external DACs for PC listening. If you're going to listen to audio from a PC, you're probably going to be much better off getting an external DAC for your PC than using whatever your PC comes with. A couple of reasons for this. One, an external DAC is generally going to have less inherent noise in it than one in your PC. In your PC, there's no real shield against electrical noise or any sort of that stuff, and stuff's competing in there. It's, for lack of a better term, very noisy inside your computer. Whereas if it's external, that's not the case. Yeah, there is still some stuff that can come over the USB bus, but it's a lot less than what's inside your case. Secondly, the quality of the DAC that's going to be in one of these is going to be a lot better than the quarter or nickel or whatever part that's in your PC. Even on more high-end motherboards, you're going to have fairly cheap DACs in them. Quality of one of these is going to be much, much, much better. And of course, for lack of a better term, the output stage is going to be a lot better. Again, the actual amp that sends the signal out is going to be better than whatever's built into your computer. So if you're doing serious listening with a computer, I can't help but recommend getting some sort of an external DAC. It's just a really good, solid idea, and definitely worth your money. Of course, you don't have to get one this expensive. Feel free to do research. And of course, buying used is always an option, and you can save a lot of money if you buy used. So that's pretty much it for the headphone DAC stuff. And if you're purely going to be a headphone listener, by some chance, if you want to drop off the video at this point, go ahead, because I'm not going to really be addressing headphones anymore. I'm going to be addressing speaker stuff from here on out in the video. So that's the cutoff for headphones. Anyway, on to it. You have choices to power your speaker. You're going to need it, assuming you don't go with, we're assuming you're going with traditional passive speakers, right? You're going to need some sort of an amplifier to power it, right? There's no electrical plug in passive speakers, right? You're going to have to, something is going to have to make the speaker drive it and make it make noise, right? Because there's no amplifier built into it, so you're going to have these things. What I'm showing off right here is a very small and simple, cheap integrated amp. It's pretty portable, as you can see, very small. It only has one input on it. As you can see, it's got, a set of speakers plugged into it in the picture there. If you look at the back here, you can use it as a quote pre-out, but we're not going to talk about pre-outs. That's a bit beyond the realm of what we're talking about. This will do, most speakers 4 to 8 ohms or impedance or whatever. Almost all speakers are that. So this will drive tons and tons of different types of speakers. Let's see here. Looks like it's got 30 watt at 8 ohms and 50 watts at 4 ohms. That's pretty good power handling. Let's see. And yeah, honestly, for the cost, this looks like a pretty high quality setup, really. Yeah, I know it's kind of limited, but for what it is, it looks like it would deliver pretty clean sound, and sound really nice. That's definitely a quote cheap option for you. If you want to go even cheaper, again, the used market, you're going to find tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of choices in the used market. Next up, we are going to look at an integrated, again, this is just a quote, stereo integrated amplifier. And yes, I will be covering the difference between integrated amps and receivers and separates here in a minute. This one is a bit more expensive, but it's a lot more versatile. You have a built-in phono cartridge in it. You obviously have some tone controls going on. And you have a whole bunch of, if you look at the back of the unit here, you have a whole bunch of units. You even have a DAC built into it. You got some digital in. And yeah, looks like you got 4 standard RCAs in. Again, 1 phono input, literally 4 record players. So there you go. And yeah, that's basically it. It's a pretty nice looking unit. The only downside to this one is there's no subwoofer output on it, right? And even if you don't start off with a subwoofer, just for future expandability, you may want to get one with an output for a subwoofer if that's something you're interested in pursuing in the future, even if not right away. As this unit here, it is more expensive. All right, no, I'm sorry, it's not that one. This one here. It is definitely more expensive, but it has more power than the other one. And this is really well regarded. I don't know how it sounds. I don't own this. I do plan on maybe getting one of these at some point in the future. It won't be incredibly soon, but as you can see, it has even more inputs on it. It looks like it has some tape loops on it. You got a phone. obviously a traditional phono input on it for record players. This is looks like it's capable of. You can see it has the subwoofer output. Looks like this is capable of bi-wiring or I don't know if it's true bi-amping of the of a speaker, but this might be capable of actually bi-amping a speaker. So yeah, you're definitely paying more for this, but you get more features, right? And I think this would honestly be well worth the money for what you get. So now we're going to just look at stereo receivers. And you're like, well, we were looking at amps, but these receivers look basically the same. Well, what's the difference? Well, basically, integrated amp, what that is typically is it's a couple of components in one, for lack of a better term, right? It has basically what you call a preamp, and all really a preamp is basically is the thing that lets you have different selections for different inputs, right? Or just one input. You know, all the RCA jacks, and you switch between them. That is your preamp, right? In the actual amplifier section is the actual output, right? What actually pushes the sound to the, down the wires to the speakers, headphones, whatever, and that's what, makes the noise, right? So basically, it's just those two things in one box. Now, if you want to go crazy, but I'm not showing that in this video because this is beyond the scope, but I will talk about it. And this is honestly something I don't even ever see myself doing ever. But if you go totally crazy with this, you can get what are called separates, which are you can buy just a preamp, right, with no amplifier section in it whatsoever. Use it and have just a preamp. Then you can have a separate power amplifier, which of course is what you actually plug your speakers into, which pushes the signal down the wires out to your speakers, and they can be separate units. I myself would never do that because I think that's going too far. But I think integrated amps may have some benefits over receivers. But we are going to talk about receivers here real quick. Some entry-level ones. This obviously is just a stereo receiver. And here it is. It's just a same brand Yamaha, but it doesn't have as many features as the integrated amp. For example, it doesn't have phono input. It doesn't have the banana plugs for speaker wires. Now, I would recommend, depending on what you're looking for, I would recommend that you buy an amplifier or receiver that has the banana plugs on them, because in case you ever want to use banana plugs on your speakers, you have that option, because you can put standard speaker wire in the binding post for banana plugs. That's entirely possible to do. I did it for years before I upgraded my speaker wire, right? I used standard speaker wire for years and worked just fine in banana plug type of posts, right? You just gotta do it a certain way, whereas this one unfortunately does not give you the option for banana plugs, and there's no subwoofer output on it now, which is kind of a shame. And of course, we're just looking at a Sony one here, and these are not extremely expensive, as you can see. Let's see. It's not letting me zoom in on that one, but no subwoofer output on that either, and more of the same here. Again, no subwoofer output on this, but it at least does have the banana plugs on it, and it looks like you can do 2 sets of speakers on it. So, bottom line, if you're going for simply 2-channel sound, and you only want to listen to music with a particular setup, I personally would recommend, oh wait, this one does have a subwoofer output. I misspoke. Okay, whatever. I apologize. Anyway, if you're looking to just listen to music, I would recommend an integrated amplifier over a receiver for a couple of reasons. One, an integrated amp is going to tend to, all of the money that's put into an integrated amp is going to go into basically, for lack of a better term, the sound, right? It's going to go into getting a solid power supply into the integrated amp. It's going to go into the output stage or the actual amplifier part. All of the money is going to be spent on that. If you buy a receiver, right, don't get me wrong, they can sound great. They can sound absolute. In fact, that's what I have in my system right now is a receiver because I have not gotten around to upgrading to an integrated amp yet. At some point, I probably will, but I'm not there yet. And honestly, I'm okay with it at the moment. But I think an integrated amp is just going to give you more bang for your buck as far as pure sound goes, because all of the features that are found in these like Bluetooth and other things that they license, like let's not even talk about 2-channel stereo receivers, right? Oh, and of course the AM/FM tuner. These all have tuners in them for if you want to listen to the radio. Integrated amps do not have radio tuners in them. You can hook an external one up if you really want to, but they don't have them built in like these receivers do. And honestly, I don't think a 2-channel receiver is really needed much in today's world. Because if you're going to go with a receiver, I would highly recommend getting at least a 5.1 to get surround sound, right? If you are wanting to listen to music and movies on the same system, just get a 5.1 or greater receiver. But keep in mind that if you get a 5.1 or up receiver, part of the manufacturing cost is going to go into basically licensing crap, licensing DTS, licensing digital HD, license like any feature that you see pop up on your that's the word I'm looking for, that's listed as a big feature selling point on your receiver is going to take some of the manufacturing costs away from the sound and the way they have to engineer. So the more features it has, not always, but a lot of times, quote, the worse it will sound. Now, there are people out there who say, well, all receivers and amplifiers sound the same. There's argument to be made that basically, let me put it this way. That's true in certain circumstances. It's true that if you have a properly designed amp and it's under a certain amount of harmonic distortion, right? And you're not overdriving it with speakers that it can't handle. If under certain circumstances, yes, they will all sound the same. But as you move up the ladder, as it were, you might notice some differences between different amps, receivers, whatever. They will be subtle, or maybe you'll hear it, maybe you won't. But you're gonna your best guide is going to be to look at the specs, right? Just look at the specs, see if whatever you're buying fits your needs, and that's really how you make a buying decision. But personally, for pure music, an integrated amp, in my opinion, is the way to go. If you are wanting to do a full 5.1 setup for home theater, obviously you're a lot better buying off a 5.1 or above receiver with, HDMI inputs and outputs and all that crap. You're better off doing that. But if you are just looking for pure music only, integrated amp. Anyway, that's pretty much going to wrap this up. As always, if you enjoyed, thumbs up. If you hate me, thumbs down. Share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you guys in the next part of the series. All right, guys, I just thought I'd throw a bit of an addendum on here. This is a little above a beginner part of a video, but that'd be important to bring this up. There are different types of classes of audio amplifiers. Same thing applies to the output section of a receiver. You have Class A, Class B, Class AB, Class you know, blah, 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 right? You might hear people talking about this stuff. In reality, as long as you do your research, this doesn't tend to matter too much. But I am, you know, I will link this in the description, in the video description. I'll link this page. That way, if you guys really want to read up on this yourself or do research on it, feel free. But don't get too caught up in what class your amp that you decide to get is. It really, for the most part, shouldn't matter. So that's it. Just wanted to throw this in here. Yada, yada, yada. See you guys.